The letter in Aliner's hand trembled, the promise of a new beginning sealed with an unknown fate. She'd traveled over 1,000 miles to wed a man she'd never met, only to discover upon arrival that the smiling face in the photograph concealed a heart as barren as the prairie he owned. Willow Anderson stared at the harsh landscape of Cottonwood Springs, Arizona Territory, 1885, wondering if she'd made the gravest mistake of her 20 years on this earth. "Ain't nothing much to look at, is it?" asked the stagecoach driver as he set her trunk onto the dusty ground. "Town's grown some since the silver mine opened last year, but it ain't exactly San Francisco." Willow straightened her traveling dress, smoothing out wrinkles acquired during the bone-jarring journey. "It's quite all right, my expectations were modest." Her voice betrayed none of the terror she felt. Just yesterday, at their overnight stop in Tucson, she'd overheard two men discussing her intended Silas Blackburn. "Mean as a rattler with a toothache," one had said. "Broke his last farmhand's arm for spilling feed. Can't imagine what he'll do to that mail-order bride he's got coming." The driver nodded toward the general store. "Mr. Blackburn said he'd meet you there. Best not keep him waiting. He ain't known for his patience." With a deep breath, Willow gathered her courage and her small handbag. She'd left Philadelphia with nothing but these few possessions and desperate hope. After her parents' death from influenza last winter, the family home and business had been claimed by creditors. The advertisement in the matrimonial news had seemed a lifeline, a cattle rancher seeking a bride, promising prosperity and respectability. The bell above the general store door announced her arrival. Inside, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a weathered face turned to appraise her. His eyes were cold as he looked her up and down, like a farmer assessing livestock. "You're Willow Anderson?" His voice was flat, emotionless. "Yes, sir." She extended her hand, which he ignored. "Thought you'd be bigger. Need someone who can work." He frowned. "You'll do, I suppose." "Got no time for courtship. We'll be married tomorrow. Preacher's already been told." Willow's heart sank as he continued outlining her duties: cooking, cleaning, tending chickens, helping with calving. Not once did he mention companionship or ask about her journey. When he finally paused, she gathered her courage. "Mr. Blackburn, I believe we should take some time to become acquainted before acquainted." He laughed harshly. "Girl, this ain't some fancy Eastern romance. This is business. I need a wife to cook my meals and warm my bed. You need a roof over your head. That's the arrangement." A young man entering the store paused at Blackburn's words. Willow noticed him immediately, tall and lean, with kind eyes and sun-kissed brown hair beneath his worn cowboy hat. His expression darkened as he listened. "Blackburn," the cowboy said, his voice carrying a quiet authority, "that's no way to talk to a lady." Blackburn turned, his face contorting with anger. "This ain't your business, Weston." "Maybe not." The cowboy stepped closer. "But I reckon Miss Anderson deserves better than being spoken to like she's cattle at auction." "Cooper Weston, you're forgetting your place," Blackburn snarled. "This woman is my property now." "I am no one's property," Willow interjected, her voice steadier than she felt. Cooper Weston's eyes met hers, and something passed between them, a recognition, perhaps. "Madam, I don't mean to intrude, but if you're not certain about this arrangement—" "She's certain." Blackburn grabbed Willow's arm. "We had a deal." Willow winced at his grip. "Mr. Blackburn, you're hurting me." "Get used to it," he muttered, but the words were loud enough for Cooper to hear. In one fluid motion, Cooper stepped forward and removed Blackburn's hand from Willow's arm. "That's enough. You looking to die today, Weston?" Blackburn's hand moved toward his hip. The store owner, a nervous man with spectacles, intervened. "Gentlemen, please, not in my establishment." Cooper kept his eyes on Blackburn. "Miss Anderson, I believe you have a choice to make. No one can force you to marry against your will, not even out here." Blackburn spat on the floor. "She signed a contract. I paid her way west." "I'll reimburse your expenses," Cooper said evenly. "And what then?" Blackburn sneered. "You'll marry her instead." A tense silence filled the store. Willow looked between the two men, one whose eyes promised cruelty, the other whose gaze held something she hadn't expected to find in this harsh land. Compassion. Cooper's next words changed everything. "If the lady would have me," he said softly, "yes, I would marry her. And I'd treat her with the kindness she deserves." Willow's breath caught. This stranger was offering her an escape, but at what cost? Trading one unknown future for another seemed foolhardy. Yet something in Cooper Weston's steady gaze told her she could trust him. "You can't be serious," Blackburn growled. "I am." Cooper turned to Willow. "Miss Anderson, I own a modest ranch outside of town. It's not much, but it's peaceful. I can offer you a proper courtship, and if you decide I'm not to your liking, I'll help you return east or find a position in Tucson. The choice is yours." The store had grown quiet, every eye on Willow. Her mind raced. She knew nothing of this man except that he'd stood up for her when no one else would. "Was that enough to gamble her future on, Mr. Weston?" she said carefully. "Your offer is unexpected and generous." "But I don't know you." "No, madam, you don't. Just as you don't know Blackburn here. Difference is, I'm willing to give you time to decide if I'm someone you could build a life with." Blackburn's face turned crimson. "You'll regret this, Weston, both of you." He stormed toward the door, turning back with one final threat. "This ain't over." After Blackburn left, the tension in the store dissipated slightly. Cooper removed his hat, revealing a full head of chestnut hair. "Miss Anderson, I apologize for speaking out of turn. I've heard stories about Silas Blackburn's treatment of others, and I couldn't stand by watching him threaten you." The store owner nodded solemnly. "Blackburn's last housekeeper left with bruises that weren't from falling downstairs, no matter what he claimed." Willow felt sick. How close she'd come to a terrible fate. "Thank you, Mr. Weston, but I'm not sure what to do now. I have no money for lodging or return passage." "Mrs. Hollister runs the boarding house," Cooper suggested. "She's always looking for help with cooking and cleaning. You could stay there while you consider your options." "That's very thoughtful," Willow hesitated. "And your proposal?" Cooper's cheeks colored slightly. "I meant what I said. I'd be honored if you'd consider me as a potential husband, but I expect nothing. Take all the time you need." For the first time since stepping off the stagecoach, Willow felt she could breathe. "I appreciate that more than I can express." The store owner cleared his throat. "If you two are finished rearranging the poor girl's future, perhaps I could complete Mr. Weston's order before my other customers expire from old age." Cooper smiled apologetically, and Willow noticed how it transformed his face, crinkling the corners of his eyes. "My apologies, Mr. Peterson. Miss Anderson, may I escort you to the boarding house? My purchases can wait, thank you." Willow found herself returning his smile. "I would appreciate that." As they stepped outside into the bright Arizona sunshine, Willow realized her hands were still trembling, but now from relief rather than fear. Whatever the future held, she had narrowly escaped a disastrous fate, thanks to this stranger's kindness. The boarding house was a neat two-story building with a wide porch and window boxes full of hardy desert flowers. Mrs. Hollister, a plump, energetic woman with silver-streaked hair, welcomed them warmly. "Cooper Weston, what trouble are you bringing to my doorstep today?" she teased before turning kind eyes to Willow. "And who might this young lady be?" After Cooper explained the situation, tactfully omitting his impromptu marriage offer, Mrs. Hollister clucked her tongue sympathetically. "That Silas Blackburn is a menace. You're better off, dearie, believe me. I've got a room available and I could use help with the baking. My arthritis makes kneading dough pure torture these days." "I'm an excellent baker," Willow offered. "My father owned a bakery in Philadelphia." "Did he now? Then you're hired," Mrs. Hollister beamed. "Room and board plus $2 a week. How's that sound?" It sounded like salvation. "That's most generous, thank you." Cooper tipped his hat. "I'll leave you ladies to get acquainted. Miss Anderson, if you need anything, my ranch is just 3 miles north. Ask anyone for directions to Weston's place." As he turned to leave, Willow called after him. "Mr. Weston," he paused, looking back expectantly, "thank you for everything." His smile warmed her more than the desert sun. "You're most welcome, Miss Anderson. Welcome to Cottonwood Springs." After he departed, Mrs. Hollister showed Willow to a small but clean room on the second floor. "That Cooper Weston," Mrs. Hollister mused as she provided fresh linens, "is one of the good ones. Lost his parents young, built that ranch with nothing but hard work and determination. Plenty of girls have set their caps for him, but he's been too busy with his cattle to notice." "He mentioned a proposal," Willow admitted, feeling her cheeks warm. Mrs. Hollister's eyebrows shot up. "Did he now? Well, that's a first. Cooper Weston proposing to a woman he just met." She studied Willow thoughtfully. "Must be something special about you, dearie." "It wasn't a real proposal. He was just trying to help me escape Mr. Blackburn." "Maybe so," the older woman conceded, "but Cooper's not one for empty gestures. If he offered, he meant it." She patted Willow's hand. "Rest now. Tomorrow's soon enough to decide what comes next." Left alone, Willow sat on the edge of the narrow bed and finally allowed herself to cry tears of relief, of fear, of overwhelming uncertainty. She had traveled so far seeking security, only to find herself more adrift than ever. Yet somehow, in the midst of this strange day, a flicker of hope had ignited in her heart. Cooper Weston's kind eyes and gentle offer lingered in her thoughts as she drifted into an exhausted sleep. The next morning, Willow woke to sunlight streaming through curtains she didn't recognize. For a moment, disorientation gripped her before memory returned. She was in Cottonwood Springs, Arizona territory, and today had been meant to be her wedding day. Instead, she rose and dressed in her second-best dress, a simple blue cotton, and went downstairs to begin her new duties. Mrs. Hollister was already in the kitchen, struggling with breakfast preparations for her 6 boarders. "There you are, dearie. Hope you slept well. The biscuits need making if you wouldn't mind. Recipes right there." Willow fell easily into the familiar rhythm of baking. Soon, the kitchen was filled with the comforting aroma of fresh biscuits. "My word, these are delicious," Mrs. Hollister declared after sampling one. "You really were a baker's daughter." The morning passed pleasantly as Willow helped serve breakfast, clean rooms, and prepare lunch. The work was hard but satisfying, and Mrs. Hollister's chatter kept her mind from dwelling on yesterday's events. Until mid-afternoon, when the front door banged open and Silas Blackburn stormed in. "Where is she?" he demanded, his voice slurring slightly. He'd clearly been drinking. Mrs. Hollister stood firm in the parlor doorway. "Mr. Blackburn, you're not welcome here in this condition." He pushed past her, stopping when he saw Willow in the dining room setting tables for dinner. "You," he snarled, "you humiliated me, made me look like a fool in front of the whole town." Willow straightened her spine. "I'm sorry you feel that way, Mr. Blackburn, but our arrangement is terminated. Not by my reckoning." He advanced toward her. "I paid good money to bring you here. I understand, and I intend to repay you once I've earned enough." He laughed unpleasantly. "That'll take months on what Hollister pays. No, you're coming with me now." "She most certainly is not," Mrs. Hollister declared, brandishing a heavy iron skillet. "Now get out before I send for the sheriff." "Sheriff's out chasing cattle rustlers." Blackburn's hand moved to his gun belt. "Won't be back till tomorrow. Plenty of time for me to reclaim what's mine." The sound of a hammer cocking froze everyone in place. Sheriff's Deputy Tom Franklin stood in the doorway, his revolver aimed steadily at Blackburn. "That's quite enough, Silas," the deputy said calmly. "Take your hand away from that gun and step back." Blackburn's face contorted with rage, but he complied. "This ain't justice, Franklin. She's mine by contract. People aren't property, Blackburn, not even out here." Deputy Franklin nodded to Willow. "Miss, do you wish to accompany this man?" "No, sir, I do not." "There you have it." The deputy gestured toward the door with his gun. "Miss Anderson has made her choice. I suggest you respect it and leave." For a moment, it seemed Blackburn might resist, but ultimately he backed toward the door. "This isn't over," he warned Willow. "Nobody crosses Silas Blackburn." After he left, Deputy Franklin holstered his weapon. "Mrs. Hollister, Miss Anderson, my apologies for the disturbance." Cooper Weston rode into town specifically to ask me to check on you, said he was worried Blackburn might cause trouble. Willow's heart quickened at the mention of Cooper's name. That was very considerate of him. Cooper's a good man, Franklin agreed. One of the best in the territory. If he's looking out for you, you're fortunate indeed. After the deputy left, Mrs. Hollister gave Willow a knowing look. Seems Cooper's quite concerned about your welfare. He's simply being kind. Hum. The older woman smiled. Kind enough to ride 3 miles into town just to ask the deputy to check on you. That's mighty particular kindness, if you ask me. Willow couldn't suppress a small smile. Perhaps. The rest of the day passed uneventfully, though Willow found her thoughts repeatedly drifting to Cooper Weston. His unexpected intervention had changed the course of her life in a single moment. She was curious about the man who would make such a generous offer to a complete stranger. That evening, as Willow helped serve dinner to the boarders, the bell above the front door chimed. Mrs. Hollister went to answer it, returning moments later with Cooper Weston following behind her, hat in hand. "Miss Anderson," he said, his voice warm, "I hope I'm not intruding." "Not at all, Mr. Weston." She was suddenly conscious of her flour-dusted apron and wisps of hair escaping her bun. "I wanted to ensure you were settled and to apologize again for the commotion yesterday. You have nothing to apologize for." "In fact, Deputy Franklin mentioned you asked him to check on me. Thank you for that," Cooper nodded. "Blackburn has a temper, especially when he's been drinking. I was concerned." Mrs. Hollister interrupted with exaggerated brightness. "Cooper, have you eaten? We have plenty." "I wouldn't want to impose." "Nonsense. Willow made the most delicious beef stew you've ever tasted. Sit yourself down." Before either could protest, Mrs. Hollister had ushered Cooper to a table, and Willow was serving him a steaming bowl of stew and fresh bread. "This is wonderful," he said after the first bite. "Did you really make this, Miss Anderson?" "The stew, yes, though Mrs. Hollister is being too generous with her praise." "I disagree," he replied after another spoonful. "It's the best I've had since my mother passed." They fell into easy conversation as he ate. Cooper asked thoughtful questions about Philadelphia, her family, her journey west. Unlike Blackburn, he seemed genuinely interested in her answers. "And what about you, Mr. Weston?" she asked eventually. "Mrs. Hollister mentioned you lost your parents young." A shadow crossed his face. "Yes, fever took them both when I was 16. I worked as a ranch hand until I saved enough to buy my own place 5 years ago." "That's impressive. You must be very dedicated. Just stubborn, according to most folks." His smile returned. "The ranch isn't much compared to Blackburn's spread, but it's mine. Every fence post, every head of cattle. That's something to be proud of." When Cooper had finished eating, he thanked her again for the meal. "I should be going. It's a fair ride back, and these summer nights get dark quickly." As he rose to leave, he hesitated. "Miss Anderson, I hope my offer yesterday didn't cause you discomfort. It was impulsive but sincere." Willow felt warmth spreading through her chest. "It was the kindest thing anyone has done for me in a very long time, Mr. Weston." "Cooper, please." "Cooper, and I'm Willow." His smile brightened. "Willow, it suits you strong but graceful." He placed his hat back on his head. "I'd like to call on you properly, if that would be acceptable." "Perhaps Sunday after church." The prospect sent an unexpected thrill through her. "I'd like that very much. Until Sunday, then." He tipped his hat and departed, leaving Willow with a curious fluttering sensation in her stomach. Mrs. Hollister appeared beside her, eyes twinkling. Well, seems Cooper Weston is smitten. Don't be ridiculous, he's just being neighborly." "Neighborly?" Mrs. Hollister laughed. "Girl, I've known that man for 5 years, and I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looked at you tonight." "That wasn't neighborliness, that was a man seeing his future." Willow brushed off the comment, but secretly she hoped Mrs. Hollister might be right. The next few days established a pleasant routine. Willow's baking skills proved so popular that Mrs. Hollister suggested selling extra pies and bread to the general store. By Saturday, she had earned enough to begin repaying Blackburn for her travel expenses, though the thought of seeing him again made her stomach clench with anxiety. Sunday morning arrived bright and clear. Willow, dressed in her best gown, a modest lavender dress with white lace trim, and accompanied Mrs. Hollister to the small white church at the edge of town. The congregation turned curious eyes toward her as they entered. News of the mail-order bride who rejected Silas Blackburn had evidently spread through the small community. "Just hold your head high," Mrs. Hollister whispered. "You've done nothing wrong." Willow followed her advice, taking a seat near the middle of the church. A few minutes later, Cooper entered, looking handsome in clean trousers and a pressed shirt. His eyes found hers immediately, and his smile caused several nearby women to exchange knowing glances. To Willow's dismay, Silas Blackburn arrived just before the service began, taking a seat at the back. His glare burned into her back throughout the sermon. After the service, people gathered outside to socialize. Cooper made his way to Willow's side. "You look lovely today," he said quietly. "Thank you. You're quite presentable yourself," she replied with a small smile. "High praise indeed." His eyes crinkled with amusement. "I was thinking we could take a walk, perhaps have a picnic by the creek. Mrs. Hollister packed us a basket." He indicated a wicker hamper sitting on the church steps. "That sounds wonderful." As they turned to leave, Blackburn intercepted them, his body blocking their path. "Touching scene," he sneered. "The rejected rancher and the mail-order bride, match made in heaven, I'm sure." Cooper's expression hardened. "Move aside, Blackburn, the lady and I have plans." "The lady," Blackburn spat, "owes me $87 for her passage west. Until I'm paid, she's not going anywhere." Several churchgoers had stopped to watch the confrontation. Willow felt their eyes on her, judging. "I've been saving to repay you," she said, keeping her voice steady. "I have $12 so far." Blackburn laughed harshly. 12 out of 87. At that rate, you'll be free around Christmas of next year." Cooper reached into his pocket and pulled out a small leather wallet. "How much did you say?" $87, Cooper. "No," Willow protested. He ignored her, counting out bills and pressing them into Blackburn's hand. $87. Miss Anderson's debt is now paid in full." Blackburn stared at the money, then at Cooper with undisguised hatred. "You think this changes anything? You think buying her contract makes her yours?" "It makes her free," Cooper corrected firmly. "Free to choose her own path. Now, if you'll excuse us." He guided Willow past Blackburn, retrieving the picnic basket as they went. "You shouldn't have done that," Willow said once they were out of earshot. "I intended to repay him myself." "I know you did, and I respect that. Consider it a loan if you prefer, though I'd be just as happy to call it a gift." "A loan," she insisted. "I'll repay every cent," he smiled. "As you wish. Now, shall we enjoy this fine day and this picnic Mrs. Hollister prepared?" I believe she mentioned apple pie. Despite her lingering concerns about the money, Willow couldn't help but be charmed by his easy manner. They walked to a pretty spot along the creek where cottonwood trees provided dappled shade. Cooper spread a blanket on the ground and they settled in for their meal. The conversation flowed naturally between them. Cooper told her about his ranch, the challenges of raising cattle in this unforgiving landscape, his dreams of expanding someday. Willow shared stories of Philadelphia, her father's bakery, and her mother's love of books. "I brought very few possessions west," she admitted, "but I couldn't leave my mother's copy of Pride and Prejudice behind. It's rather worn now from so many readings." "I've never read it," Cooper confessed. "Never? Oh, but it's wonderful. Elizabeth Bennet is the most delightful character, strong-willed and intelligent, refusing to marry merely for convenience." "Sounds like someone I'm coming to know," he said softly, his eyes holding hers. Willow felt her cheeks warm. "Perhaps I'll lend it to you sometime." "I'd like that." He hesitated. "Willow, I hope you know I meant what I said that first day. If you decide to return east or move on to another town, I'll help however I can. I don't want you to feel obligated to stay because of today." His sincerity touched her deeply. "Thank you, Cooper. That means more than I can express." As they packed up their picnic later that afternoon, Cooper seemed to be gathering his courage for something. "I'd like to show you my ranch sometime," he finally said. "Perhaps next Sunday, Mrs. Hollister could accompany us as a chaperone, of course." The idea of seeing where he lived, understanding more of his life, appealed strongly to Willow. "I'd enjoy that very much." They walked back to town together, Cooper carrying the picnic basket. At the boarding house steps, he paused. "Thank you for a lovely afternoon, Willow." "Thank you for arranging it," she hesitated. "And for settling my debt with Mr. Blackburn. I promise I'll repay you." "Take all the time you need." His eyes lingered on her face. "May I call on you again before Sunday? Perhaps Wednesday evening? I'd like that." With a tip of his hat, Cooper departed, leaving Willow to face Mrs. Hollister's knowing smile as she entered the boarding house. "Had a nice time, did you?" the older woman asked innocently. "Very nice," Willow admitted. "Thought you might. Cooper Weston may not be the wealthiest man in the territory, but he's got a good heart, better than gold in the long run." Willow couldn't disagree. The next morning, Willow was kneading dough in the kitchen when Mrs. Hollister bustled in, her expression troubled. "Dearie, there's something you should know." She glanced around to ensure they were alone. "Silas Blackburn was in Grady's saloon last night, drunk and threatening all manner of violence against Cooper. Said he'd stolen what was rightfully his." A cold fear gripped Willow's heart. Surely he wouldn't actually hurt Cooper? Blackburn's mean as a snake when he's sober, when he's drinking. Mrs. Hollister shook her head grimly. "He's downright dangerous. Should we warn Cooper? Already sent one of my boarders out to his place this morning. Cooper can handle himself, but he should be on guard." The warning proved timely. That afternoon, Cooper rode into town to find 3 of Blackburn's ranch hands waiting for him outside the general store. The confrontation turned physical quickly, with Cooper fighting off all 3 men until Deputy Franklin intervened. Cooper emerged with a split lip and bruised knuckles, but otherwise unharmed. His attackers fared worse, with one nursing a broken nose. When Willow heard about the incident, she insisted on seeing Cooper, who had stayed in town to file a formal complaint with the deputy. "This is my fault," she said when she found him at the sheriff's office. "If you hadn't helped me, don't think that way," Cooper interrupted gently. "Blackburn and I have had our differences for years. This is just his latest excuse." "What kind of differences?" Cooper sighed. "His land borders mine. He's been trying to force me out, pressure me to sell. Last year, some of my cattle were found shot. No proof it was him, but everyone knew. That's terrible. It's the way of things sometimes. Men like Blackburn believe they're entitled to whatever they want, and they'll do anything to get it." Deputy Franklin joined them, notebook in hand. "Cooper's right about that. Blackburn's had run-ins with half the ranchers in the county. Problem is, he's got money and connections with the territorial judge. So he'll face no consequences for this attack," Willow asked, outraged. "Oh, I'll arrest his men for assault," Franklin assured her. "But proving Blackburn ordered it, that's another matter entirely." Cooper touched Willow's arm gently. "Don't worry, I can handle Silas Blackburn." Despite his reassurance, Willow couldn't shake her concern. As the days passed, she found herself watching anxiously whenever Cooper came to town, relieved each time he appeared unharmed. Wednesday evening arrived and Cooper called on Willow as promised. They sat on the boarding house porch, enjoying the cooler air as sunset painted the desert in brilliant golds and purples. "It's beautiful here," Willow admitted. "So different from Philadelphia, but there's a stark majesty to it." "That's a perfect description," Cooper agreed. "First time I saw this land, I thought it was the most unforgiving place on earth. Now I can't imagine living anywhere else." Their conversation wandered pleasantly until Cooper broached a subject that had clearly been on his mind. "Willow, I need to ask you something." His expression grew serious. "Are you staying in Cottonwood Springs?" The question caught her off guard. "I haven't decided yet. Mrs. Hollister has been very kind and I enjoy the work, but it's not what you came west for," he finished for her. "No," she admitted. "I came seeking a husband, a home of my own." She looked away, embarrassed. "That sounds terribly forward." "Not at all." His voice was gentle. It's an honest ambition. Many women come west for the same reason. And end up promised to men like Sela's Blackburn, she said bitterly. Some do. Cooper's hand found hers on the porch railing, his touch warm and reassuring. Others find something better than they expected. The implication hung in the air between them. Cooper, she began hesitantly, your offer that first day was sincere, he finished, and remains so. But I don't want to rush you, Willow. Take all the time you need. His patience and consideration only increased her growing affection for him. Thank you. They sat in comfortable silence as darkness fell completely, the stars emerging in breathtaking profusion. I should go, Cooper said eventually. It's a long ride back and I have an early morning tomorrow. As he rose to leave, his eyes lingered on hers. For a moment, Willow thought he might kiss her, but he simply squeezed her hand. I'll see you Sunday, he promised. Rest well, Willow. She watched him mount his horse and ride away, her emotions a confusing tangle. In just over a week, this kind, steady man had become increasingly important to her. The prospect of seeing his ranch on Sunday, of understanding more about the life he lived, filled her with anticipation. Sunday couldn't come quickly enough. The remainder of the week passed in a blur of work. Word of Willow's baking skills had spread, and the boarding house was doing brisk business selling pies and bread to townspeople. Mrs. Hollister was delighted, especially when Willow suggested expanding their offerings to include cakes and cookies. Girl, you're going to make us rich. The older woman exclaimed. Willow laughed. Hardly rich, but perhaps comfortable. On Saturday evening, as Willow was preparing dough for Sunday morning's breakfast rolls, a commotion outside drew her attention. Raised voices, then the alarming sound of gunshots. Mrs. Hollister rushed into the kitchen. Stay inside, she ordered. There's trouble. But Willow couldn't obey. A terrible foreboding gripped her as she followed Mrs. Hollister to the front porch. In the street outside, Cooper Weston stood facing Sela's Blackburn. Both men had drawn their revolvers, though neither was firing. You've gone too far, Blackburn, Cooper was saying, his voice carrying clearly in the evening air. Setting fire to my south pasture crosses the line. Blackburn's laugh was ugly. Prove it was me. Dry lightning strikes all the time in these parts. 3 of my best steers dead, and you think I believe it was lightning? Cooper's normally gentle voice was hard with controlled anger. This ends now. A small crowd had gathered, keeping a safe distance. Deputy Franklin was noticeably absent, called away to a disturbance at the saloon. Someone whispered, likely a diversion arranged by Blackburn. You're right about one thing, Weston, Blackburn sneered. This does end now. His hand tightened on his gun. No. Willow's cry pierced the tense silence as she hurried down the porch steps. Both men turned at her voice. In that moment of distraction, Blackburn raised his weapon and fired. The shot went wide as Cooper dove to one side, returning fire with deadly accuracy. Blackburn staggered, clutching his shoulder, his gun falling to the dirt. You shot me, he gasped, his face contorted with pain and rage. Be thankful I aimed for your shoulder, Cooper replied grimly, keeping his gun trained on the wounded man. Next time I won't be so merciful. By now, several townspeople had restrained Blackburn and someone had run to fetch the doctor. Cooper holstered his weapon and turned to Willow, who stood frozen in the street. Are you all right? He asked, his eyes searching hers. She nodded mutely, her heart still racing. I'm sorry you had to see that. His voice was gentle again. This isn't what I wanted. Before she could respond, Deputy Franklin arrived, quickly taking control of the situation. After hearing multiple witness accounts confirming that Blackburn had drawn first, he formally placed the injured rancher under arrest. He'll face charges this time, Franklin assured Cooper. Attempted murder in front of a dozen witnesses, even his friends in high places can't ignore that. As Blackburn was taken away to have his wound treated before being locked in the jail, Cooper turned back to Willow. I should explain, he began, but she shook her head. Not here. Too many eyes and ears. He nodded, understanding. Tomorrow, our plans to visit the ranch? Yes, she agreed. Tomorrow. That night, Willow barely slept, her mind replaying the confrontation in the street. Cooper had shown remarkable restraint, wounding rather than killing Blackburn. Yet the violence had shaken her deeply. Morning brought clear skies and the arrival of Mrs. Hollister's buggy, borrowed for the day's excursion. Cooper drove, with Mrs. Hollister seated between him and Willow for propriety's sake. As they left town behind, the landscape opened before them, rolling hills dotted with sagebrush, distant mountains rising purple against the horizon. After about 30 minutes, Cooper turned onto a well-maintained dirt road marked by a wooden sign reading Weston Ranch. Willow's first impression was of careful stewardship. Unlike some properties they had passed, where cattle had stripped the land bare, Cooper's ranch showed signs of thoughtful management. The pastures were healthy, with plenty of grass for the cattle that raised their heads to watch the buggy pass. The main house came into view, a modest but sturdy structure with a wide porch and climbing roses beside the door. Behind it stood a barn, bunkhouse, and various outbuildings, all well-maintained. "It's lovely," Willow said sincerely. Cooper's expression brightened at her approval. "It's taken years of work, but it's home." He helped both women down from the buggy, then gave them a tour of the property. The house was simply furnished but comfortable, with a surprisingly well-stocked bookshelf in the parlor. "My mother loved reading," Cooper explained when Willow commented on it. "I've tried to add to her collection over the years." The kitchen was spacious, with a large wooden table dominating the center. "My ranch hands eat here when the weather's bad," Cooper explained. "Usually it's just me, though." As they continued the tour, Willow could envision a life here, bread baking in the oven, children running through the rooms, Cooper returning from a day's work to a warm, welcoming home. The vision was startlingly appealing. While Mrs. Hollister rested on the porch, Cooper showed Willow the barn and introduced her to his horses. His gentle way with the animals further endeared him to her. "About yesterday," he said as they walked back toward the house. "I want you to know I've never drawn my gun on a man before." "I'm not a violent person, Willow. I know that." She touched his arm gently. "You were defending yourself, your property. Blackburn's been pushing for months, trying to force me off my land. The fire was the final straw. I confronted him, expecting harsh words, maybe threats. I never thought he'd draw on me in the middle of town." "He's a desperate man," Willow observed. "And now he'll face justice." Cooper nodded. "Deputy Franklin thinks he'll be sent to the territorial prison for a few years at least. His friends can't protect him from this." They had reached the shade of a large cottonwood tree near the house. Cooper stopped, turning to face her directly. "Willow, I need to ask you something important." His expression was serious yet tender. "These past weeks, getting to know you, they've been the happiest of my life." Her heart quickened. "Mine too," she admitted softly. "I meant what I said that first day in the general store. I would be honored to court you properly, with marriage as our goal if that's what you want too." The sincerity in his eyes took her breath away. This wasn't the desperation of Silas Blackburn, seeing a woman as property to be acquired. This was something far more precious: respect, admiration, and growing affection. "Cooper," she began carefully, "when I came west, I expected a business arrangement, not feelings. This is all happening so quickly." "I understand." His disappointment was visible, though he tried to hide it. "You need more time." "No," she said, surprising herself with her certainty. "What I need is honesty. I came seeking security, but I've found something I never expected: a man whose kindness and integrity have captured my heart." Hope dawned in his eyes. "Are you saying—" "I'm saying yes," she confirmed, her smile blooming. "Yes to courtship, with marriage as our goal. Yes to building a life together if you'll have me." His answering smile was brilliant. "If I'll have you, Willow Anderson, you are the most remarkable woman I've ever met. Having you in my life would be the greatest blessing I could imagine." Slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished, Cooper leaned forward. Their first kiss was gentle, a tender promise beneath the cottonwood tree. From the porch, Mrs. Hollister watched with satisfaction, pretending not to notice when the kiss lasted perhaps longer than strict propriety allowed. The courtship of Cooper Weston and Willow Anderson became the talk of Cottonwood Springs. They attended church together, shared Sunday dinners, and Cooper visited the boarding house several evenings each week. As summer turned to fall, their affection deepened into something neither had experienced before. In October, Silas Blackburn's trial concluded with a sentence of 5 years in the territorial prison. The community breathed a collective sigh of relief, none more so than Cooper and Willow. "His ranch will likely be sold to pay his debts," Cooper told Willow one evening as they sat on the boarding house porch. "Several larger outfits from up north are interested. What about his ranch hands, the ones who helped him? Most have found work elsewhere. A few of the better ones have asked if I might have positions available." "And do you?" Cooper smiled. "I'm thinking of expanding. The south pasture is recovering nicely from the fire, and with Blackburn's land available, there might be an opportunity to purchase the section adjacent to mine." "That sounds ambitious." "It is," he took her hand, "but I have good reason to build for the future now." As November arrived with its cooler temperatures, Cooper formally proposed marriage. On a crisp Sunday afternoon, he took Willow for a ride to a beautiful overlook on his property, where the valley stretched out below them in autumn splendor. There, he dismounted and helped her down from her horse, leading her to a flat boulder warmed by the sun. From his pocket, he produced a small velvet box. "This was my mother's," he said, opening it to reveal a delicate gold ring with a small but perfect diamond. "My father saved for 2 years to buy it for her. I've kept it safe, waiting for the right woman to wear it." Willow's eyes filled with tears as he continued. "Willow Anderson, you came into my life unexpectedly, but now I can't imagine my days without you. You've brought light and warmth to my world. Would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife?" "Yes," she whispered through happy tears. 1,000 times yes. The ring fit perfectly, as if meant for her hand all along. They agreed on a Christmas wedding, giving them time to prepare while the weather was still favorable. Mrs. Hollister insisted on hosting the reception at the boarding house, promising a feast that would be remembered for years. In the weeks leading up to the wedding, Willow divided her time between helping at the boarding house and preparing Cooper's home for her arrival. She sewed curtains, ordered linens, and gradually moved her few possessions to the ranch. Cooper, meanwhile, worked tirelessly to make everything perfect for his bride. He added a small greenhouse off the kitchen, remembering how she'd mentioned missing fresh herbs in winter, and expanded the master bedroom to include a sitting area with a bookshelf for her beloved novels. 2 days before Christmas, with snow dusting the desert landscape, Willow Anderson and Cooper Weston were married in the white church at the edge of town. The building overflowed with well-wishers. It seemed the entire community had turned out to celebrate the union of the mail-order bride who had refused cruelty, and the kind-hearted rancher who had offered her a choice. Willow wore a simple gown of ivory satin with lace at the collar and cuffs, her hair adorned with a crown of winter berries and evergreen. Cooper, looking impossibly handsome in a new black suit, couldn't take his eyes off her as she walked down the aisle on Mrs. Hollister's arm. Their vows were traditional, but spoken with such genuine emotion that many in the congregation dabbed at their eyes. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Cooper's kiss was tender yet filled with promise, bringing a blush to Willow's cheeks and approving smiles from their friends. The reception at the boarding house was indeed memorable, tables groaning with food, music from a hastily assembled band of local talent, and enough goodwill to warm the coldest winter night. The newlyweds danced, laughed, and accepted countless congratulations before finally departing for their home as evening fell. Cooper had arranged a special surprise for their arrival, lanterns lighting the path to the house, where a fire burned cheerfully in the hearth and the rooms were warmed against the December chill. "Welcome home, Mrs. Weston," he said softly as he carried her across the threshold. Her new name filled Willow with joy. "It's perfect, Cooper. Everything is perfect." That night, as they lay together in the quiet darkness of their bedroom, Willow reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought her to this moment. She had traveled west seeking security and found love instead, a love freely given and freely chosen. "What are you thinking?" Cooper asked, his fingers gently stroking her hair. "I'm thinking about fate," she replied. "How close I came to marrying Silas Blackburn. How one moment of courage, yours and mine, changed everything." "I knew the moment I saw you in the general store," he admitted. "Something inside me just recognized you. Even though I was dusty from travel and terrified, especially then. Your dignity in that moment, your refusal to be treated as property, it was breathtaking." Willow kissed him softly. "Thank you for seeing me, Cooper, for offering me kindness when I needed it most. Always," he promised, "for all our days." Spring 1886 brought new beginnings to Weston Ranch. Cooper's cattle operation was thriving, bolstered by the additional land he'd purchased from Blackburn's estate. Willow had transformed the house into a true home, with flourishing herb gardens, fresh baked bread, and the warmth of her presence filling every room. She had also discovered a talent for business. Using her baking skills, she had begun supplying not only the boarding house but also the general store and even the new hotel in town with pies, cakes, and bread. The income supplemented the ranch's earnings, allowing them to hire additional help and make improvements to the property. On a perfect May morning with wildflowers carpeting the hills, Willow shared news that made Cooper's face light up with joy. "A baby." He repeated, wonder in his voice as his hand gently touched her still flat stomach. "Due in November, the doctor thinks." Her smile mirrored his. "Just in time for Christmas." Cooper gathered her carefully in his arms, his voice thick with emotion. "I love you, Willow Weston. More than I ever thought possible." "And I love you," she whispered against his chest, "my kind cowboy who saved me from a cruel fate." As the years passed, the Weston family grew and prospered. Their first child, a daughter they named Eleanor, after Willow's mother was joined by 2 brothers and another sister. The ranch expanded, becoming one of the most respected operations in the territory. Silas Blackburn eventually served his time and left Arizona, never to return. The scars he'd left on the community gradually healed, replaced by the legacy of kindness and integrity that Cooper and Willow built together. On their 20th anniversary, as they sat on their porch watching their children play in the yard, Cooper took Willow's hand, his thumb brushing over the wedding ring that hadn't left her finger since that Christmas day. "Any regrets?" he asked softly. "About coming west, about choosing this life?" Willow looked at the home they had built together, the thriving ranch, their beautiful children, the community they had helped to strengthen. Most of all, she looked at the man beside her, whose kind offer on that long-ago day in the general store had changed everything. "Not a single one," she replied, leaning her head against his shoulder. "I came seeking a husband and found my heart's true companion instead." What greater blessing could anyone ask for? Cooper's arm tightened around her as the desert sunset painted the sky in glorious color, a fitting backdrop to a love story that had begun with an act of kindness and grown into a lifetime of joy. In the years that followed, the story of Willow Anderson and Cooper Weston became something of a legend in Cottonwood Springs, the mail-order bride promised to a cruel man, saved by a cowboy's simple offer of kindness. Their grandchildren would eventually hear the tale, marveling at the courage of their grandmother, who had traveled alone across a continent, and the integrity of their grandfather, who had offered a choice when others would have demanded obedience. Their love story, born in the harsh beauty of the Arizona territory, served as a reminder that even in the wildest places, kindness could flourish, changing lives and hearts forever.